What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. I was thinking about 2016 again. Everything that made that year as great as it was and that era as great as it was. Because while you're living life, you'll sometimes be able to catch a whiff of the way your present will smell in the future, the way you'll feel when you look back on it. But 2016 was weird in that you knew you were in good times, or at least fun times. And I spent a lot of today thinking about what that was, or what those things were. First and foremost, you were still young enough to hope. You had a nice selection of content. Frank, Max, and iDubbbz were at the top of their game, doing great stuff, together and independently. You had something I'm redeveloping a fascination with, I guess. Vaporwave, which I'm finding fascinating now because that spawned as this 80s, 90s nostalgia thing, but then it became its own thing. Because when I think about the neon and that sort of music and the cloudiness, the dreaminess, I don't think about the 80s at all. I think specifically about 2016. That that was a 2016 aesthetic. We thought it was 80s nostalgia, but it wasn't. It was its own thing. The 2010 to 2013 games were still relatively new. This happened a little bit earlier than 2016, but Star Wars was coming back, and when that was happening, that was a huge deal, huge source of excitement. And even though Episode 7 wasn't great, it wasn't awful. I didn't walk away from that movie feeling bad about it. Most of us were in the beginning of college, or just entering college, or just getting ready to go to college. Maybe you were getting your feet wet with content, experimenting for the first time. This was way back when. A time when, because you were still able to hope, you didn't hold any cynicism for these dumb fucking movements, because back then you didn't have a frame of reference for the way movements operate, which is to say, wasting your time and taking your money, and ironically ensuring you'll be unable to do anything to make any of the changes you think you are trying at least to make with your dumb movement, because either things were happening, or at least they seemed to be happening. Once again, you don't have that cynicism, you don't have that life experience yet. So I was doing the I was doing the red pill review and the blue pill review. Essentially, I would go watch some new popular movie and then I would make a review about it, identifying whether or not the themes of that movie lined up with things people like Jordan Peterson said, or Jim said, or Stefan Molyneux said. Thankfully, not what Sargon said, because even at my most retarded, I was never that retarded. But of course, when you're doing this, you think you are pulling out these important themes, these meaningful themes, extracting value. Like you're the one doing it, when really what you're doing is you're like a data entry clerk or a copy editor, identifying whether or not things line up with your source document. So if I'm understanding anatomy correctly, you are the small intestines. And none of those are still available on the channel, thank God. There is still one video from that era still up, and that is the I think it's the second video on this channel with the yellow on the side, and I'm just talking over a creek, a babbling brook. And that's the video in which I stumbled into the format we still use. But despite all that, I was still in my School of Athens shit. I thought discussion mattered, I thought debate mattered. I thought all different sorts of people could come together and figure things out like there was some objective thing that everyone reasoned the same way, and the only reason we didn't, or we came to different conclusions, was we hadn't all been exposed to the same shit, and that is not the way it works. Not at all. And I was still kind of dating the squat pig, a woman without belief, because seeing is believing, and she was blind. The empress of the empress of the sub threes. And then, of course, the election was going on. I think this was also the era in which Rogue One came out. And it's like clockwork. We have paper clips today. We had safety pins back then. Everybody's walking around with a safety pin. Like that's supposed to mean something or that's supposed to change anything. It's good to know, even today, politics is the same thing as planking, at least for the peasantry. And another thing is, back then you had people who were actually edgy. I know a lot of people hated Leafy, but I liked him because of how mean he was. And how consistent. And this is another thing. I'm tired of everybody acting like they're making a stand, or that anything they say is brave. If you can say something and know reasonably, most people will agree with you or applaud you, or you aren't taking any serious risk. Opposing the state online, posting a comment, is very different from being in the street and having an issue. None of that is brave. None of that is edgy. None of it's cool. Because coolness comes from edginess. It comes from danger. And Leafy, even though he was popular, and it's been interesting watching him pop up on the radar now and then and hear stuff about him. Even back then, even though he was popular, he would consistently say things that would piss people off, upset people, get him fucked over, eventually got him done in. Well, not dead, but internet-wise. And maybe that has something to do with the fact the memory of O&A was a little... Well, not necessarily the memory of O&A, more like the lingering scent. The shockwaves they produced. You might not have known who O&A were, but you felt their presence in popular culture. And that still exists to an extent, but it's much smaller. You don't see many people actually taking risks anymore, doing anything risky, saying anything that might offend people. With Patrice's saying, half the people should be laughing and half the people should be horrified. You might feel like you are saying things that would horrify half of the people, but are you really? And I love Jews as our example. Anti-Semitism is commonplace. It's suspiciously commonplace. I remember when I was in high school, and even suggesting anything vaguely anti-Semitic would piss everybody off. Now you say something vaguely anti-Semitic and everybody cheers. And nobody's suspicious about that, and I have no idea why. And it's not like people have become harder to piss off, they've become easier to piss off. It's more like the realm of acceptability has shifted for some reason, because if you weren't supposed to be doing things, then there would be backlash. And it wouldn't be from the state, it would be from people, because the state controls people using people. Especially people who act like they hate the state. They hate the government, they hate corporations, but they will never go outside the shallows. But we're getting off topic, back to the point. Why did all of these things work in 2016? Work to create a good atmosphere, to create a good mood, to create optimism. I think it's because it seemed like positive change was possible. It's easy to feel good when you feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, especially because you think you can see it. So today, while I was thinking about how to recreate a 2016 sort of feeling, I came to the conclusion that's not possible. At least for us, at least right now. Because there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and nobody's going to make one. And of course this is where retards will jump in and say, well, you have to make one yourself. I agree partially in that it's clear you need to make your own way, but that's not the same thing as this global light at the end of the tunnel. And if you want to tell people they need to make it for themselves, who's doing it? When is it going to happen? Are you going to do it? If you are, then why haven't you? Or if you have been, then where is it? It's a bunch of losers afraid of risk comforting themselves, which is part of the reason incel core went down the shitter. I saw a jokey video today about incel types saying, my culture isn't your costume. That's not even funny, ironically, because you turned your culture into a costume by being these weak, approachable, wanting to be accepted people. And you turned yourselves into doormats because there's no edge, there's no stink, there's no riskiness. A suburban white girl has no fear of identifying herself with incel core because there is zero risk or stink or edge to it. You gentrified yourselves. And why am I so mean to people? Why do I say shit people don't like? It's to keep people out. It's to keep the stench thick. And this is my nanoscopic corner of the internet, but I'm not letting my shit get gentrified unless you very clearly buy me out. But that's probably not going to happen. Anyway, that led me into thinking about if we can't recreate a 2016 in a bubble, then what can we do to have fun with this? And frankly, I think it is unadulterated blackpilling. If it was so fun to hope in 2016 because of the hopeful direction we thought the world was moving in, then why don't we maximize misery? As a society, we're already doing that, but we aren't allowing ourselves to have fun with it. Every cutthroat thing, or every painful pragmatic reality, needs 50 noble strugglers feeding you the same trite, useless, 10 years proven useless, red pill shit. I don't know, expecting something to change, or turbo thumb sucking, exhibition style. See, one of the things I'll never understand is why people hate looks maxing so much. That, and the fact it has a point, that it works, is such a brutal thing, and a sad thing, and a painful thing. But it's like everybody's afraid of the truth, so they need to put it down and deny it at every level. When in reality, if you take a little sip of that black pill, you could be having a lot of fun. Okay, it's fun making yourself look better. It's funny how truly and god-awfully shallow humanity is. It's fun indulging yourself in trash. Seeing how deep the trash hole goes. I bought some mega processed canned, oh Jesus Christ, what is it? Fish something and crackers as a to-go snack, and it was the most... It was disturbing, but eating it was fun. And people talk about eating all these non-processed healthy foods and shit. I bought some packaged croissants that have a shelf life of like over a year. Disgusting. But actually also tasted pretty good. And eating these, I feel like... Do you remember... I didn't read the book. I vaguely remember watching the movie. The Road, when the kid finds the Cheetos. I feel like I'm eating expired trash in a post-apocalyptic world from a former age because nothing else is available to me, because nothing else is. And this hustle culture shit everybody is complaining about. Yes, it would be nice to live in a world in which we don't need that, but that's not the world we live in. This is what's available to us. And it allows you to experience misery in ways unique to your age. And that's another thing I thought about. Maybe I was going to call this video something about 2016, but maybe I should pull another No Country for Old Men quote. What you got ain't new. This country's hard on people. And I was thinking about that today too, realizing maybe things are not going in a bad direction per se. Probably, things have always been bad. This exact feeling we're feeling has always existed, except now it's expressed in a new way. And I'm not suggesting these things are fun. I am suggesting we have we have an array of shit we can do to mark this era in our memory and have an interesting life that way, so we have something to look back on and think about instead of just fucking sitting and complaining about everything, but not doing anything, but also not doing anything. And that's the other thing. There is some good stuff in this era. There are era-defining things, but culturally, we're so fragmented. There are tons of things we can do unique to this era, but it doesn't feel like there's much we can enjoy culturally unique to this era. Because people aren't making music today in the same way they were in 2016, if you know what I mean. When people were making music in that era, you knew that was that era's music. Today, we have trends that pop up here and there, but there's no defining thing. At least not one I can think of. Do you remember I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside? You would expect this era to have music and culture similar to that. For that to be our defining thing, but as I said earlier, people are so afraid of confronting the truth, of confronting darkness without end, at least not without an end we can see. I think this will come to an end, but it'll have nothing to do with anything we do or don't do. That's just the way life works. So for us, afraid of facing darkness without an end we can see, or reasonably bring into reality of our own volition, because that hasn't happened and it's not going to happen, it's like people are too afraid to embrace what is and accept what is happening. And it's especially the people, these dumb, appreciate and savor the moment people. Okay, this is the moment we're in, and you talk about accepting the moment, and you don't want to accept the moment. It's like society is having a temper tantrum, and I think that's in part what the Epstein Files is, or is part of. It's one of many outlets for this huge temper tantrum. Even if you entrusted them to give you the rope you'll hang them with, which is dumb in the first place, I still have no idea how anybody expects anything really damning to come out. People act like damning things have come out, but that furthers my point. Even if they did, even if you entrusted them to and they did give you that rope, you, coward, would never hang them. And they are proving that to you in real time. And I think, or at least I hope, on some level people are aware of that, are aware of what's happening. But even if they aren't, this whole thing is a tantrum and an absolute refusal to accept reality, which is pointless because reality is reality whether or not you accept it. But by your not accepting it, we stay in this limbo in which we can't get into anything or get serious with anything. Because to do defining things, at least intentionally, you need to enter the desert of the real. The issue I'm running into is I think this era still can be defined by some things, but mostly outside us, outside anything we do, this era feels like it's defined by a lack of definition. We are defined mostly by trappedness, like we are stuck in jelly, like we can't move our heads. We can't look to the future. Nothing. The things everybody is focusing on are such a gargantuan nothing. It's like there's nothing to look at or nothing to focus on. Outside, for you, current events roll as entertainment, but how entertaining is it when it's manufactured like this? Or maybe it's the way we are defined by a lack of momentum. Because the Epstein files, this is supposed to be this era's momentum thing, but it's nothing. There is no momentum here. You feel like there's momentum, probably because you need to feel like there's momentum, but this is not a new frontier to explore that will bear any fruit. This is their garden. This is their show. Utterly their show. And it's... People are aware of that, but they still think somehow this is their show, that anything is going to happen. It's like they have hijacked your ability to care about anything as a society. Because the thing you care about is this artificial nothing. And on top of that, you're too scared to make it something. No, it's like watching your parents argue. That's what this era is defined by. Nothing productive is going to happen here. But your siblings, for some reason, are hoping it will. Still, you could at least be stacking cups like that kid in that one video was doing while his parents were arguing. They want you and your soul caught up in a nothing. So maybe the same way there are black holes, maybe we can create small artificial black holes, maybe mimicking something like 2016. But 2016 was defined by this... It wasn't just a brighter tomorrow, it was almost an inevitability of a brighter tomorrow. And I think that can be recreated on a smaller scale, but one, even if you do manage to create it, it'll still be overshadowed with the darkness without an end we can see, which is something you'll have to confront at some point. And also, a sense of inevitability is a difficult thing to create when you're the one building it. The nice thing about getting caught up in society when society is on an upswing is all you need to do is play your part. You aren't responsible for the whole shebang. Meaning, although this upswing is artifice, it doesn't feel that way because you, naturally, without really thinking about it, are doing your part in creating that upswing. But that's impossible today because of the shit we are taped to a wall and forced to be watching. And most people, for some reason, think is reality, and it's not reality. It's not reality. Not reality. But maybe that's some growing up we need to do. How to build your own inevitability, and how to spawn your own culture on top of it. There's probably a way to do it, but it's not going to happen using shitty, dumb cliches grifters taught you. You aren't going to get there doing the red pill review. If you want to make your own inevitability in that space, probably you need to become a grifter yourself. Be the grifter instead of the grifted. But I don't think most of these dummies are capable of that. Mainly, I'm shocked there hasn't been another Filthy Frank-like. I thought immediately after he fell, more would take his place. And a Jewish dude ended up becoming Frank 3, but he's inconsistent. Doesn't really do anything. I have no idea why there isn't another one. The world cries out for chromosomes. Maybe once we build up enough money, we can start doing travel vlogs a la the old Max's Second channel. And I can't make music. On the skills list, we've talked about this a few times, but some skills you're naturally talented at, can get good at quickly. Some you have a degree of talent for, or maybe no talent for, but there are no debuffs, and with great effort, you can bring yourself up to an okay level. But then there are some things you need to spend a ridiculous amount of time to get to a beginner level with, and then there are some things you just are never going to be good at. For me, music is one of those. I could probably get myself up to just above a beginner level with drawing if I put in a ridiculous amount of work, but I have no passion for that, so that's not going to happen. Writing, we're starting to do that, playing our part. I don't want to live an undefined life. I don't want to live in a vague, aimless, pointless, undefined era. Even if the definition needs to be unhappy things, I'd rather have that with definition than aimless misery with no definition. But I think we'll end it here because my throat is beginning to hurt. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't. I almost accidentally said survive if you haven't.